And welcome back to the conclusion of our Big East triple header today. We saw Villanova earlier lose to St. John's, and we saw St. John's take their 2-0 against Marquette. And now to round it off, it's Butler versus Villanova, two teams that are currently, I believe, out of playoff contention, but still fighting to make a statement between each other. And of course, who doesn't want bragging rights against other teams in the same sort of echelon?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of these players on all of these teams are pretty prideful. They care a lot about their rank among sort of the league. And so even if you aren't fighting for one of those top four spots, fighting for the rest of the ranking is still very relevant to them. It's sort of a way you can prove yourself as a player. It's a way to prove yourself to your school because a lot of these schools have pressure on the line to perform in this league because, esports is still a very budding, unproven thing. And so they all want their programs to succeed as well as they possibly can.
Exactly. It's all about the success, being able to show, even if our team's not DePaul, who's had this roster for quite a while, or Seton Hall that has just been continuing to grow, and really every esport that I see them in, they're still teams that want to fight, that want to improve, want to show to their programs that we're still developing. And it's okay to be a developing team so long as you're continuing to improve and you're beating those teams that you need to be beating in those lower echelons. So Villanova definitely going to want to still be playing through their bot lane, Franco, as we really noted, and Butler really lean in towards their team fighting.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think of the teams in the league, these two are some of the closest in terms of quality of play that I've seen. They have relatively similar score lines, and I think that overall this is going to be a pretty close match between two teams that should be able to go head-to-head against each other. We saw earlier in the day, right, Villanova put up some pretty serious competition against St. John's. It was a 2-0, but both of those games very easily could have ended up going the other way.
Yeah, they were very winnable for both sides, so that does sort of give the edge over to Villanova as far as how they look going into this. Of course, Butler a little lower in the standings. Villanova was trying to compete with St. John's, maybe try and disrupt some of that playoff contention, but of course the clean 2-0 does mean that there's no issues present. And of course this is going to be in roll order. We don't have the pick order quite yet, but we'll probably comment on that at the end of the draft as we see everything start to lock in, see these compositions start to really develop. As so far it's Wulala once again on that Camille. We saw it earlier, Frostfire really impactful on that Sejuani. On the other side, Butler going for bit of a beefier team comp, and I do like this Talia to help cross map as well.
I think Talia is just an incredibly strong champion, and I don't know the draft order, but it definitely looks like they saw a lot of mobility on the side of Villanova, right? Even just seeing Camille, Sejuani, Ari, these are champions that probably got picked pretty early, and so Camille is just a great answer into all of them. Ari specifically really feels constricted by that Talia in the later stages of the game, as Franco does what I've been wanting him to do. He picks Jinx and is playing to scale, but on the other side of it, Rel is actually going to be the pick for the side of Villanova. I really would have expected and probably preferred an Enchanter pick here. Probably something like the Lulu, I think, would be a much safer pick, where you can just have Sejuani be your primary form of engage, and you can just rely on Franco to carry the game.
Yeah, I agree. I think that an Enchanter would have been really good, especially for trying to poke out this lane. Whereas, yes, Rel does provide some of that all-in potential, but how early do you want to be all-inning on this Jinx? Because Aphelios does have similar early game damage, and so without that extra poke, there's not that same space to really pressure. But beyond that, I think Villanova, they have a pretty run-at-you comp. You land a Frozen Bola, you have an Ari Charm on top of that, you get this Rel to continue that engage, whereas Butler, it's a little bit less direct, but boy, does it scale.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely prefer Butler's comp here. I think Butler definitely has a scaling advantage, and unlike sort of the last couple games played, Villanova doesn't have an early enough team composition to really punish how greedy this Butler lineup is. And so what's probably going to happen is Villanova is going to start out and get a little bit of an early lead. Akers is going to have mid-prio for a little while. Wula is going to be able to get like a roam or two off. Maybe Dreamwalk and make something happen. But even if they get the first dragon, the first two dragons, come that 20-25 minute mark, it's going to be Butler who are just going to be impossible to get to in a fight, right? Like, if we look at this, Carthago has cleanse, and so how does anyone really touch him trying to get through Levi's stones on the ground, trying to get through an Ornn ultimate, a hostile takeover? There's just no way to really touch this backline for Butler.
I think that it's the path is definitely very difficult. Those stones, as you mentioned, going to deny on an already flank, going to deny the Sejuani if they are just going for run at you. And same with the Camille, going to be a ton of damage as well. But there is still so much dive present from Villanova that unless it is a really, really all-encompassing hostile takeover, this Ornn is sort of sitting nearby that Aphelios. I think there's definitely ways for Villanova to access that Aphelios, especially with how really all-in Butler is on this carry, because yes, Talia can do a lot of damage, she can impact these fights, but your damage is in this Aphelios. If this Aphelios dies, the team fight is over unless something crazy happens, whereas Villanova have a little bit more diversification. Of course, this Jinx is still that main hyper carry, but Camille, Ahri can each, hold their own, and of course, Sejuani, she can deal a decent chunk, especially under the tanks. So there is space, a little more space to work with, I think, because Villanova is a little more diversified, but I do get what you're saying, that it's going to be very difficult to access the Aphelios with how linear their team composition is.
I mean, that is always definitely the problem with these two threat comps, is that if either of your threats go down, you kind of run out of damage very quickly. It's very hard to actually get through a Sejuani and a Rel, and like the range of Jinx or the sustain potential of a Camille if you only have one person who's able to DPS them, and you certainly aren't going to be able to get through all of them at the same time. The main thing with this Butler composition, though, is Udyr is a lot more of a damage threat than people give him credit for a lot of the time, especially if he's able to get ahead in the early game. If Udyr just goes even, he probably won't be that big of a problem for this Villanova lineup, but if he gets some early tempo and can go into that more aggressive Demon Helm build, he can really pose a major problem for Villanova.
Yeah, that is very true. This Udyr could be that sleeper bruiser that they really need to sort of round them out, give themselves an extra half or potentially a full third threat if he gets ahead. But considering the matchup, I don't see Frostfire ever walking into a single 1v1 fight or running in any positions that will really allow this Udyr to get ahead. So it's going to be more so punishing the lanes, finding opportunities that way, and at the very least, Villanova still seems to have, at the very least, a base level stronger lanes until you start to really ramp up, where that Talia matchup doesn't get rough for the Ahri until she can get a few more points into her abilities. And of course, in the bot lane, it is just two hyper carries with their semi-engaged supports. Obviously, Renata's technically an enchanter, but the handshake, everything else, it's that pseudo engage. She's like half engage, half enchanter. She just does everything for some reason. As we are loading into game, our final set of the day, Butler facing off against Villanova.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that this game is gonna come down to the jungle matchups, right? Like, none of these lanes, have all that much solo agency. So it's going to be this Udyr and this Sejuani who need to come and interfere in the matchups and make something happen. As we get something happening level 1, they're gonna get spotted out by Levi in the bush, but there's no one here to actually collapse on them yet.
Not seeing much of a response either on the other side of the map. I would have liked to see the bot lane for Butler, after spotting all 5, walk up and find some vision, but instead it is just going to be a bit of a reset. So missed opportunity, I'd say, for Butler to gain some information of their own, as Villanova are just going to reset here, send their bot lane back to the bot lane, and have Frostfire start on this top side.
Yeah, Normally when this kind of thing happens, you send your support into the enemy's buff and you kind of just trade off the vision, but it is going to end up with NatDog recalling, picking up his sweeper, and, you know, getting a little bit of EXP for himself. And yeah, no harm, no foul in the end. It ends up being slightly advantageous to Butler in that they get the little bit of reward for killing the ward, and it ends up being a little advantageous to Villanova, who get information of where Butler is starting, and actually Villanova also fake leashes, which means that Butler can't be sure which side of the map Frostfire is going to be on. Normally, when both sides appear to have leashed, as Levi actually spots out Frostfire on the chickens, I can't even make that point. They know for sure Sejuani started topside and is pathing bot, so well played on him to actually clear up the ambiguity and get that vision.
Yeah, very well done. As I don't think, actually, one of the chickens was stolen away, so Levi taking a little bit of that extra XP, and now engage off the level 2. Immediate flash off of Papa Jaster. And Dreamwalk still wants this, but don't think he wants that ignite damage, as it will be a counter flash out from Dreamwalk. And that's it.
Yeah, just a little bit of miscommunication there. We saw Papa Jester hit the handshake, but not pull Dreamwalk closer, which meant that Carthago, who was expecting that, missed the green Q. And with how much health Dreamwalk walked out of there with, that could have actually made the difference between a kill or not.
Definitely. Could have been that little difference, and shows how key that communication is, being on the same page as actually Sky and Wulala. Another flash out. Dreamwalk remounted, healed up a little bit, but taking tons of damage from Carthago, and both junglers are around. But it does seem like it will be disengaging bot side, but top side, Butler, Sky is gonna go down to Wulala as its first blood picked up.
Yeah, interesting. Butler actually opting to run their alternate top laner in this match. I believe Sai is the alternate. They're, I should remember the name of their, whatever. He is the alternate player. Franco's in a lot of danger here, getting booted up.
Franco heals, flashes away, but there, even with the stun, Carthago gets that kill, and Dreamwalk forced to jump off. And the fact that Aphelios is taking the lead in this match does not bode well for Villanova's bot lane.
No, this is a very snowbally matchup, since both champions really have no option but to sit there and auto-attack each other. Whoever's auto-attacks hurt more is just going to be the one that wins the matchup. And so Carthago getting this early lead against Franco means that it's going to be very hard for Franco to find an opportunity to recover. It's gonna have to be some play by Dreamwalk where they manage to get an engage. But the problem is, I've talked about this before, right? Renata is one of the best anti-engaged champions in the game, so it's really hard to find those windows as Rel to actually make that opening happen.
It is really, really difficult. So now I'm thinking it's 1-1 on both sides, sort of opposite sides of the map, that there are those advantages. Do you think that Villanova wants to play through Wulala early on, or is it just still early enough that there hasn't been too much to dictate the pace and direction of this game?
I mean, I definitely think Wulala on this Camille is somebody you can try and play around, but in this Ornn matchup, it's really hard to actually force the kill. So Frostfire's time might just be better spent bot trying to recover this matchup, because that's really what's going to decide this game, right? If Ornn goes down 0-2, 0-3 and your Camille maybe gets 3 kills, it's going to help. But if you leave bot lane by themselves and Carthago builds a lead over Franco, that is actually potentially game losing. And so I think Frostfire should continue to spend his resources on that bot lane, even though it went poorly initially.
And it's a matter of defining those resources. Is Dragon is up on the map. Neither jungler looking towards that as a priority, but Wulala once again finds a timer and is going to head on to the mid lane. Levi does sniff that one out and avoids any issues, as this could lead to some mid priority and pressure towards this bot side of the map.
Levi is level 6, but he's low on mana here, so he opts to just call it a fake roam, go back to mid lane and catch the wave. And that's something Talia can do that we should look out for kind of during this game, is that Talia doesn't actually need to commit anything to draw pressure on the map, because just by virtue of being in the fog of war, it's applying a pretty strong threat to Villanova that they have to respect. So Levi is just going to keep doing what he's doing right now all game, clearing mid wave, ducking into fog of war, looking at bot side, and then just walking back mid to catch his wave. And every time that happens, Franco and Dreamwalk need to walk back a little bit and pay respect to the possibility that he might not walk back to mid lane this time.
A little bit of trading in the bot side, or attempted trading, as Nat Dog will be able to pick up that bot scuttle, so keeping that vision control, as Carthago is just so far ahead. Noon Quiver picked up already, is going to back and likely get a pickaxe, and there it is. Absolutely commanding position for the ADC for Butler. But I will say props to Franco and Dreamwalk for not falling further behind and not getting baited into any other engages.
Yeah, they've actually just sat back and played to scale, and this early kill is not actually resulting in all that much tempo for the side of Butler. It's a CS lead, I mean a tiny CS lead, but a CS lead for Franco, and what should be probably a CS deficit considering how this early game went for him. Another thing to point out is that we've been talking a lot about this Aphelios' scaling, but actually with Press the Attack, that signals he might be going the more burst-oriented Collector Lethality max build, which could present some major scaling problems. We were talking about how this Butler lineup is a very two-threat comp and very low on damage if they don't get to snowball and get that hyper carry status. And I mean, Aphelios, even on this build, can definitely be that hyper carry you need. It's not... Ooh,
just a solo kill on
getting
top
a solo
lane.
kill out of nowhere, yeah. I was not expecting that. I thought he was just going for pick, for poke. As, yeah, this top lane matchup is, in fact, getting out of hand. Unlike the bot lane matchup, as Wulala is building a pretty sizable advantage.
Significant at that. I'm going to say in the top side, it did just feel like, as you said, poke, and instead it was looking for that break point for the all-in, and the fact that Wulala is going flash and not the ignite means that there is less risk in going for those kind of dives, and this Camille could definitely be a way to shut down this Aphelios as the game goes on. And I am going to say, though, even if Carthago does go for that collector build and wants to get a little more bursty, he's still an Aphelios. And,
oh yeah, absolutely.
And most of Villanova is going to be decently squishy to the point that LDR wouldn't be doing that much. Now, of course, against Frostfire, Wulala, if he builds a little tankier, it'll certainly be relevant. But you just need to kill Ockers and Franco, because that happens, the fight's over.
Yeah, almost certainly. And not even comparing it to LDR, right? Like, we're comparing this to the Lethal Tempo Bloodthirster second build, where you're getting dove on. It's very valuable to just have that sustain. It's very hard to kill you. And looking at Villanova, the dive is kind of just pretty low damage, right? It's Sejuani, Camille, and Rel. So you might not end up needing all of that lifesteal because you have that Renata to peel for you. And that does enable Carthago to go for the more aggressive build path. But I still probably would have liked to see Lethal Tempo come out just to have a lot more late game insurance. I feel like a lot more things can go wrong when you go PTA here.
That's true. I can definitely see that, as you have that PTA, it is pretty reliant on those early engages. Oh, decent bait from Ockers. Fantastic flash. And just going to be trade ulti for some, but still advantage for the Villanova jungler. And Wulala using those Ornn pillars against Sai, and just going to say, very well played in this matchup by Wulala. Understands these breakpoints, is turning it into a CS lead, has already that kill lead, and their first mythic in the Divine Sunderer. Second mythic of the game picked up by Carthago in the bot lane. So some pretty significant power spikes arriving. And we haven't seen any real significant movements or significant play. Like, there was a Baron, or not Baron, there's Dragon taken bot side, and it was traded for Herald on top side. There was a couple solo kills top, one solo kill bot side, and a couple flashes burned off of ganks, but nothing really indicating the direction of this game.
Yeah, very little team play so far as Wula actually goes in here. Just gonna zone him off of his Gromp. He's so strong that Mad Dog does have to walk away, but just temporarily. Wula heads back to lane, and yeah, to your point, right? Both these teams are very slow-paced scaling compositions. Levi can make early roaming plays on Talia, but ever since she got those changes a long time ago, she has been completely content to just play this slow scaling game where her Q is going to have a 0-second cooldown, and she's just going to be pumping out damage in teamfights. And so neither team feels particularly pressured to make anything happen. Although I do think Villanova might need to feel a little bit of pressure, especially being down a Dragon early.
Oh, and the hookshot attempt to escape, but this is the team play that we were looking for. The Hextech ultimatum means Wulala still gets one back. It's a dive from 3 members, and they get the shutdown, but still nice outplay.
Yeah, and there's a Herald in the mid lane as well. It's going to be a very big outplay for Wulala, as yeah, he draws the attention of 3 people to his lane. Gets the trade kill. He gives over a shutdown, but that's barely positive for Butler. And then look at this mid plates. 4 plates. That's 2 kills worth of gold traded back in Villanova's favor, netting them almost 1,000 gold lead already. Is Akers in good danger though?
Oh, Akers trying to stay alive with the Spirit Rush, but that Berserk was enough with a lockdown on top of the Moonlight Vigil. And that's going to be 2 more kills going over, neutralizing the impact of those plates.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why we saw Talia picked against this Ahri, right? Akers was positioning away from the Udyr, trying to get away with that ultimate, but just as he was about to try and get away, that field came down on the ground, and he had to juke down, and that put him in range of the stun, and then he got chain CC'd, and it was just incredibly awkward for Akers to try and play out.
Now, Butler transitioning their advantage in the mid lane towards this Drake. Sky is just here. This Ornn is just vibing around the Drake. And this is going to be likely another plate. Okay, it's close, not quite going to be that last plate picked up for the Aphelios, but still has quite the gold lead off of those kills. Hextech Drake picked up. We are going to have an Ocean Soul. So Butler would certainly want that moving forward. But overall, it's been very, very tight. And we know that Villanova can try and come back from a game, from a deficit, especially in that first game against St. John's, but they still weren't able to close it out. They were able to get close, but they couldn't quite bring it all the way back, and that's been their real trouble, whereas for Butler, they're sort of known as a team-fighting team. They've got a team-fighting comp, and they're letting themselves scale. It's going to be a matter of if they can make those late-game decisions that they really need to.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think come late game, Butler is going to be completely favored over Villanova. You said it right. Their team fighting is some of the best in the league. Usually things kind of fall apart for them because they get to early lane deficits. And so even if they win the team fight, they just don't have the gold and it ends up being negative. Whereas this game, right, they're up gold in the early game. It's only a little bit, but they're completely even. And so once that later stage comes, they are going to feel absolutely amazing looking at the team fights. You also said this Ocean Drake, right? It's Ocean Soul, and Butler is in fact pretty happy about that. Usually you see the Ocean ripped and you're like, at least it's not wind, I guess. But with how tanky this Butler composition is, right? Ornn, Udyr, Renata's surprisingly durable, and then Aphelios obviously with all the lifesteal he gets. There's going to be so much regen, and it's going to be so hard to actually burst somebody down on Butler that if they get Ocean Soul, it will actually provide an incredible amount of value.
Definitely, and actually, Carthago did just pick up the last Whisper, so this is going to be a Lord Dom second. So not going for that more aggressive collector build, and neither for that BT rush. Just opting for that engage option. Is flashed away from Frostfire. Not sure if that one was necessary, but still Herald picked up, and now it's just going to be a 1v1 between the ADCs. Moonlight Vigil gets dropped, and no amount of kiting with the miniguns, but going to be enough for all those chakrams, as Carthago with a clean little solo kill.
Yeah, I mean, Carthago is really just running away with the game at this point. 3-0-1. Most of his gold has really just come from individual leads. He got a little bit out of that mid lane play. I think he got one of the kills there. But other than that, it's just been him kind of dominating the lane against Franco, who was previously considered one of the much better AD carries in the league. Carthago has been putting up a great performance recently, and it's continuing in this game.
And now, I will say, though, Villanova, despite not having the fight wins, they have been playing the map quite well, playing away from this Aphelios, getting the top tier 1, getting the mid tier 1, and of course, getting that crash onto the top lane tier 2 allows for some extra pressure. The real trouble is just going to be, as this game continues, Franco is just so far behind.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this Villanova lineup, right, you need this Jinx to be getting ahead. That's kind of why I said I really would have rather seen an Enchanter for them, because it's such a Jinx-centric comp. Ahri is not going to be putting out enough damage to be getting through any of the front line of Butler, especially not with the Liandry's build. She's not going to be able to really assassinate the squishies either. Wulala is really your only other major damage threat, but he's probably going to get peeled out, and he doesn't have the damage to actually chain kill multiple tanks. At least he can't do it fast enough, so you really need Franco to be that attack damage carry, and when he's falling this far behind, he's going to come online so late in the game.
And the fact of the matter is, if this Jinx isn't going to be that carry, it really relies on Wulala finding an engage into the back line and finding a way to assassinate this Aphelios. But as he gets stronger and stronger, if he's got the right guns, I don't even think that would be enough.
Yeah, I mean, if Carthago goes into a fight with red-white and he gets oh my god, I can't remember the name of the spell. He gets a shield from Papa Jester. Papa Jester pulls away Wulala, right? There's a pretty real chance Wulala dies there, actually, when he was the one trying to pick off Carthago. The peel is very nice on the side of Butler.
And now I think this next Drake is going to be a real turning point for this game. Both teams are getting set up. Of course, this guy on the top side does have the teleport. We'll send that mid. Horn will be present. Rel still isn't here, so an awkward timing for the side of Villanova to try and contest this Drake. Both teams
yeah, the Rel's
posturing.
coming in on the flank. I think Butler has vision of it, though. They actually don't. There's a pink ward in the bush. Dreamwalk has a good angle here, but it looks like Carthago's going to be able to scout it out. And now it's this team fight with Butler we're talking about, right?
Got to see if their team fighting prowess can arrive when they need it the most. Both teams just sort of sitting at each other, looking at each other, waiting for the right engage. There's the trigger from NatDog. Wulala's in the front, but he's taking a ton of damage. And this trouble is, Ockers is awkward, and Wulala now in the center of things. Carthago finds that first kill, and the loyalty program is enough. Will burn down. Franco finds that shutdown, but the rest of Villanova is falling. The charm not enough. Fishbones finds that kill. It's a 2 for 3 as Villanova barely able to walk away with a few scraps.
It's going to be a 2 for 3, but it's going to be the Dragon going the way of Butler because they have the higher health bars. They have the numbers advantage. Importantly, though, Franco was able to cash in both the kills, and both of those were pretty stacked shutdowns. We saw Aphelios died and still has another shutdown to give over, so Franco got an incredible amount of gold off of that play, and the soul isn't even taken. Levi opting to shove in mid lane instead. Sai on the Ornn with Papa Jester next to him can't actually take the dragon. All things considered, Villanova walks away the victors of that fight, although Ocker is in a lot of danger here.
Oh, and Ockers, I think, just gets blown up here unless Frostfire can turn it around, and indeed, that's going to be it. Those stones shutting down Ockers, and that should mean this Drake will go over to the side of Butler, as even a reset from Wulala does have the teleport back in. Levi with low mana, as Villanova is just going to concede it.
Yeah, Franco walking away already, just saying to give it up, catch mid lane. And this is sort of the state we were expecting to be in after that fight occurred. we got a little bit of extra mid pressure. Levi able to get the mid tower and then also get the dragon in a little bit of a have your cake and eat it too moment, as Butler really maximizes their reward. And sitting on Soul Point, Villanova is very quickly running out of time to come back in the game, and even despite getting those shutdowns, it's still basically a full item lead for Carthago, sitting on a completed Lord Doms and a crit cloak to just the last Whisper and a crit cloak on Franco.
It is just such an item disparity when you're looking at those two ADCs. I mean, a 5 at 1 and 2 Aphelios is just so terrifying. And it's going to take so much time for the Jinx to really respond. And Ulala going a bit of a squishier route, more focused, it feels, on the 1v1 with that Ravenous Hydra pickup, as opposed to Titanic, or looking for a beefier item option. Do you think that's the right call, or is there another avenue he could have gone?
Ravenous Hydra is pretty standard, but it is definitely the committal split push item where you get better wave clear and you get better sustain for taking trades in a side lane. Normally, if a Camille is looking to team fight, we see something more like a Death's Dance come out of her. And so Wulala, I think, is sort of admitting that they're not going to win this game through team fighting. They are going to win it through macro and forcing Butler to answer them in the side lanes instead, which honestly, with how this game is going, I think is probably the right decision.
I completely agree, as Wulala will just find his way over the wall with that hook shot. Call of the Forge God might still catch out one. Frostfire flashes away, and that will be the escape. Carthago was around, but just couldn't get any damage dealt. It was those red and white guns, so pretty short range, as actually the Berserk gets dropped and will find the last second onto Wulala, and that is a big pick, as the purple worm's on the Rift, and the Camille was the only real carry. Butler wants it.
Yeah, there could not have been a worse place for Wulala to get picked off. Any time a death happens in top lane, it's so easy to just say, well, I guess we're already here, and pressure this Baron, as Frostfire gonna look for a steal. All the zoning tools have been blown.
Oh, that was so close. When I saw the Super Mega Death Rocket pop through, I was afraid, but it is just going to be Frostfire going down. Smite down from Nat Dog, and Butler will be able to pick up the Baron and continue their lead, as they've got the fighting, they've got the carries, and now they got the purple buff.
Yeah, Butler definitely took a coin flip that I don't know if they needed to take, but it ends up coming up heads. They end up getting the Baron. They get the kill on Frostfire. Now with only 2 minutes left on this Dragon timer, they're going to be wearing purple when that soul spawns, which means they're going to have lane prio, they're going to have the extra stats that the Baron buff gives you, and they are going to be incredibly advantaged in the soul fight. So even though there's only a 2, maybe 3-ish thousand gold lead, Butler is in a completely dominant position.
Absolutely. It's the gold doesn't tell the whole story, because it's where that gold is. This Ornn has been sacked. This Udyr is just going full tank, realizing he is a stun bot, and the carries, this Talia and especially the Aphelios, have gotten all the major kills, have found shutdowns, have found waves, and are now going to keep pushing in and pressuring down Villanova, as this has been a long day for them, and a real grinder of a game here against Butler, where it's just been incremental advantages going the way of the Bulldogs.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned how fed the Talia and the Aphelios are, as Wulala looking for a side play.
Does just want this solo kill, actually. That Q2 should be enough. Yeah, he's going to get that one. Absolutely. Doesn't really matter.
And yeah, to your point, right, this gold isn't on Ornn, it's not really on the Udyr or the Renata, right? It's where it needs to be, it's on the 2 carries. So not only is it a gold lead for Butler, it's like the perfect situation of a gold lead for them as well.
Yeah, when you just look across the board at these two, at the carries, it's components towards a Rabbies up against a Luden's Shadow Flames and completed Medjai's with 10 stacks in the bot lane. They both have Kraken and LDR, but components towards IE already picked up on this next back. I'm sure it's going to be the Infinity Edge buy for Carthago. And the fact of the matter is, they are just able to deal so much damage to such a scary Aphelios. And we'll say, though, fortunate for Villanova, the fact that Wulala was on the side lane and had that objective bounty, is able to pick up that tier 2, get a little extra change in their pockets, but it's still really not enough to catch up.
gonna have to be Villanova's moment to fight. Carthago wasn't able to get a reset off before this fight starts, so Butler has positioning on the dragon, but every member is sitting on a pretty substantial amount of gold. This has to be Villanova's opportunity. They're on their way down, and they are going to fight for it. Butler just starts burning though, so they're on a timer.
Yeah, there's an absolute timer, and Villanova have to be the ones to engage. Wulala just getting chunked out so hard, and there's the hard engage. Multi-man knock up Carthago's low. Carthago's dead! Triple off the death rocket, and it's all looking up for Villanova. They were too clumped, and Butler falls. Dragon goes the way of Villanova, and what a moment, what a turnaround.
Dreamwalk is listening to the comms, and he wants to prove me wrong. I spent a decent amount of time talking about, I wish there was a Lulu here. Lulu cannot do that. I will tell you that much. He finds an absolutely amazing miracle flash engage, R-ing in all 5 members of Butler into a giant AoE follow-up. A single super mega death rocket gets a triple kill, and off of it, Villanova gets the dragon, they delay soul point, they get 2 towers mid lane, they get the inhibitor, they might even be able to pressure this bot tower as well, though I kind of doubt it, and they cash in shutdowns. Gold is now 3,000 in favor of Villanova, I guess 2,000. A little bad at math, that 9's going to take over to a 0, but it's just such a swing from a huge Butler lead to a huge Villanova lead. And I was talking about it's really great that all of the gold for Butler is on the Talia and the Aphelios. All of that gold just went on to Franco on the Jinx. So Butler is really looking down the barrel of a gun right now, trying to set up this Baron because everything's really falling apart and they need to make something happen because they were not expecting to be put at the disadvantage in this game.
Absolutely not. You're looking at that position. It feels unlosable, but everyone's clumped up. There's a clean engage and super mega death rocket. It's in the name, death. Like it just comes to. Oh,
absolutely.
I thought that Frostfire stole that red, unless he did, and that was rough. But oh no, wait. Actually, Wulala runs on the Levi. This could be a really big pick, as Baron's up in a minute, helps with a lot of setup, and that is just going to be a clean kill. Super starting to march down mid. Villanova are just in control, and Butler don't know what to do.
Yeah, Levi with such a long death timer is actually not going to be alive until Baron spawns. He has TP, he's going to be able to get to the pit, but Talia's a champion who really wants to make you come to her, and so if you're showing up late to the Baron, that is going to severely hurt the value of the champion.
It's going to pretty much deny everything that she wants to do. She wants to control that space, and now
she's a Medjai's as well, by the way, which is completely dead.
Yeah, it was at 10 stacks before, and then after that series of fights, 0 value presented off of that book. It's just a negative gold investment now, as a couple resets out of Villanova. I think that these are a little bit late considering the Baron timing, and this is going to
very awkward.
Yeah, this is going to make up for that mistake of Levi getting caught out, but it will still mean that Villanova are that much stronger now with a stopwatch onto Franco. Being able to keep that carry alive is really the objective of Villanova. This feels like a protect the president moment.
Yeah, and I really want to see how close Levi is to completing this death cap. He's sitting on both components, and while he was dead, I was about to say I'd really like to see him sell Medjai's to finish the death cap, but Villanova applying 0 pressure to the Dragon Pit doesn't even force Levi to TP over. Carthago's in a lot of danger.
Oh, Carthago a little too far forward. The Actic ultimatum's dropped. They know that this is the problem member. They are keeping him close, and he is going to get blown up. As a quick pick should mean the Baron for Villanova.
Yeah, just a lot of very lazy positioning from Carthago, walking up way too far to hit the minion wave. The engage range on this Villanova comp is just so long. We saw it in that first fight they turned around, and we see it there again. From off of his screen, Wulala comes flying in and locks him down.
The fact of the matter is, you can't be that arrogant in a way. You can't step up like that if you are your team's carry, as Wulala and Dreamwalk alongside Akkers playing that Vanguard role, and that's going to be Baron found for Villanova. As they're in complete control, Butlers just still have to be really scratching their heads on how they let this game go, how they let one fight turn everything around.
It is just completely flying out of control for them. With this Baron buff and Butler being on resets, it means that the Ocean Drake is going to go the way of Villanova as well. They may try and fight for a contest. Butler might be thinking, we need this soul. If we don't get this soul, it's for sure lost. But it's going to be so hard. Once again, it's Villanova with the positioning. It's Villanova controlling the territory and making Butler walk into them. They don't have huge problems taking space with an Ornn and an Udyr, but it's definitely not the position champions like Aphelios and Talia want to be put in.
Absolutely not. As no flank ward found. It is just going to be a reset from Levi. Now this does appear to be just an attempted burn down play, but instead it's the flank around. Carthago's first of all in the fight, and everything looking up for Villanova. Franco dove on the back line, but that's a full tank Udyr. Franco's just able to get the damage, get the kills, and it's the rest of the team coming in for the cleanup as Akers throws out a charm. There's only 2 left running away, and all that Villanova has to do is run down with a minion wave, and they will find their first win of the day.
Everyone on Villanova is just taking turns being the hero. First it's Dreamwalk with a crazy engage, and then it's Woolala finding another one that takes the Baron, and it's going to be Akers FN, probably the MVP of the last series they just played, who's going to be finding the last pick that ends the game. Franco is just untouchable.
I mean, Franco has ascended. It was that one fight, that triple kill, that turned this Jinx from a wet noodle into a carry, as some damage from a Moonlight Vigil, but it's too little too late. Butler let a win fall through their fingertips, and Villanova are finally able to answer for their earlier games.
Yeah, Villanova had so many games that were so close to getting closed out, but never were able to make it past the finish line. In this game, they got the turnaround, they got the reversal, and they were actually able to just keep up the pressure, keep finding the plays, and end the game pretty cleanly. As soon as they got the gold lead, they just did not let up on the brakes.
They didn't at all. They knew that they turned the tempo, they turned that corner, and the fact of the matter is Villanova is not a team that's going to let up once they're given that chance and given that opportunity. Is now Butler going to need to try and respond, or Villanova will try and find a sweep and continue the pattern of the day. We'll have more Big East action when we return. And welcome back to our final series of the day, as we just saw Villanova have a fantastic comeback win off the back of a really key team fight that just turned the entire game around.
Yeah, and it's really important to draw attention to the fact that it kind of just came from one team fight. We can't forget that Butler was in a pretty dominant position for basically the entirety of the game up until that moment. Just because Villanova won does not mean we can discount Butler at all. We've seen a lot of matches like this happen where a team is getting destroyed, they get one team fight, they win a game, and then the next 2 games they get destroyed and they don't get one team fight, right? So we need to really kind of like keep our wits about us and focus a lot on what Butler is doing here still, because they were the ones controlling the tempo of that game basically the entire time.
Exactly. It was that control that did seem to be pushing the game, developing their leads. They were really investing in Carthago and the bot side, that Aphelios, who wound up being their downfall. It was a few moments of mispositioning where after that initial break open team fight, that it was Carthago getting caught in the mid lane, and then once again at the end of it, a collapse onto Carthago that prevented that Aphelios from being able to do anything. So now it's a question of, does Butler change their draft and their strategy to look for something that maybe is a little more self-sufficient, like the Xayah that we saw earlier today? Or do they transition and just actually don't transition and keep the same style, keep the same team comp, because it worked for most of the game?
I mean, I think ideally we'd see a much more early game focused comp come out of Butler. I think they were just dominating the early game, and if they were playing something like a Lucian, Nami, and a Syndra perhaps, right, they could have closed the game out at 25 minutes and there never would have been any incidents, right? So I don't really know if that's what they play. That's not really what I've seen them play, but something like Levi and Akali at the very least, instead of the Talia, is something that definitely comes to mind as a change Butler could make.
Yeah, getting more of that assassination potential, a little more agency out of the mid lane that creates some more of that proactivity. While Talia, of course, can be proactive. She has those roam timers, that potential. It just never really came to fruition. The few roams that Levi wound up going for, barely, not very many panned out because of the Talia roam. It was more so other extraneous elements that allowed for that to continue and allowed for those ganks to work out. As now we do have a side swap. Villanova will be on the blue side, and Butler opted for the red. And we'll see how this impacts their drafting.
Yeah, a lot of teams have been opting for red side today, and I think it's just because they're shying away from established meta power picks, and they go more towards like comfort, and they say we can give over something like an Aatrox or a Yuumi or something really strong, and then just get two champions we think are really good in this collegiate meta that we have established. And yeah, for example, right, they give over Wukong, who is not a priority pick, and then Butler just gets two picks of whatever they want. So really, they are coming out of they are coming out on top here. As I did get a little bit, I completely forgot we're not drafting in order here. I don't. The blue one was actually no spoilers. The blue one was actually a Kali, taking that away from Levi. So I think I'm a little bit on the same wavelength as Villanova's. We saw in match one today, right? Akers has a very good Akali, and Levi is known for his Akali as well. So taking that pick away sort of serves both purposes.
Yeah, exactly. And that the Silas in response, I think it's a pretty solid matchup for both. It's a skill matchup in lane, and of course, the Akali, if she does get ahead, will be able to just assassinate. But still, Levi has some decent ultimates already with the Wukong, with the Graves, and now it looks like Franco might be looking for that early game agency in the Lucian. And it will be, I believe, a Nami to follow it up. So this is looking pretty good for Villanova. They wanted to go early instead and allow Butler to pick for late and take that transition.
Yeah, a little bit of a reverse of what I was kind of expecting here. I really thought it would be Butler who would be trying to push a lot more of the early tempo, but I think they just kind of went into their meeting and said, you know what, there was like one bad moment, we were winning. If both teams just draft the same way again, we'll win the game. And Villanova said, nah, you guys are like probably tilted off that. We're just going to pressure you in the early game now. We're going to pick Lucian, Nami, Akali. We're going to play for early kills, early tempo, and we're going to win the game. And honestly, the response from Butler, I kind of like. Lucian Nami is very oppressive, but it is a little bit hard to get through Lulu. That is one of the champions we've seen who does get picked into it a lot. Usually it's Lulu Aphelios, but Lulu Jinx serves a pretty similar purpose. And then in the mid lane, we've seen just so much Sylas versus Akali at Worlds. It's such a popular common matchup because, as you said, right, neither side is particularly favored. They just do their own thing. And so I don't think Akers is really going to find the huge snowballing lead that he wants to get.
Yeah, I don't see this turning into just a snowball like we saw in some of the games earlier where Akers was that difference maker and was just finding an early lead. Now, of course, it's possible, but as we saw last game, Akers and Levi are pretty close together. Like there's not that much of a skill discrepancy, whereas we look across earlier, there were certain moments where there might have been some matchup advantages, but still it's been very even across both of these teams. But I will say I do really like how Villanova is saying we want a faster game. We know that we're feeling confident, as you said, playing the mental, saying, oh, you're probably tilted. We're going to now play Lucian Nami and make you even more tilted. Now, of course, it's not the early game powerhouse that it used to be. Removing the electrocute proc off of the Nami E doesn't make it as oppressive, but it's still really, really strong at the one item spike. And I think that's where Villanova really wants to play, especially with Frostfire on this Graves. Hits level 6, has some dueling potential, spikes a little earlier than the Vi, so might be looking towards that bot lane, might be looking towards those early Drakes, and that could be the avenue Villanova tries to take.
Yeah, I will say my one concern with this Villanova comp is I'm a little worried about how light on true hard engage it is. You have like a Nami wave is the only thing that's going to start a team fight. Wulala, if he can get in and get a Cyclone onto the Jinx, that'll also do it, but that's a pretty tall order. That's not a consistent way. And so it's going to be hard to actually force a fight on Villanova's terms. Now, Butler has a pretty similar problem. It's really only the Vi ultimate that can start a fight. However, Butler's also the team that's a lot more content to play the slow game around an objective and let Jinx get random pot shots off, whereas Villanova wants to make something happen fast.
Yeah, they do want that speed, and that's one point where the Graves kind of perplexes me, that the Sejuani wasn't banned away. While, of course, there was a lot of targeting at Wulala, getting rid of those bruisers, and, of course, the Camille we saw last game, and there was some pinching of other parts of the champ pool. I really would have liked to see that Sejuani again, because when Frostfire has looked good today, it's been on Sejuani.
Yeah, absolutely. I think his tank play has been really great. He's had pretty good macro and some great engages, even in the last game we just watched, right? And so putting him on Graves, especially in a composition that is already so high damage, feels a little bit backwards. There's no real front line from this Villanova comp. Something like a Sejuani would have solved that problem I have with it, right? That is just a very consistent go button that starts a fight.
Yeah, you have the frozen bola, you have the charge, you have your stuns on top of it, and of course, how difficult it is to just cut through a Sejuani, that Barrett. I mean, she's behind me, right? Like she's right behind me, just menacing. Look at that. Like it's so tanky. And now I am questioning Villanova that if they don't get ahead and this doesn't just turn into a game of okay, what's next? Okay, and we just take fight after fight, or they're just crushing through towers early on. If the game stalls like we saw last time, it's going to be really difficult for them to take these 20, 30-minute fights, because they won't have the same range. They won't have the same hyper scaling that this Jinx offers, that this Sylas can sort of offer. And of course, Set is a much more effective frontline than anything Villanova has.
Yeah, this is going to be a very different game from the last one. And I will say, in terms of scaling, we think of this Lucian Nami lane as being very all in the early game. And I think if the enemy team has a tank like an Ornn or a Sejuani or something, that is pretty true. But the really big scaling threat of Lucian Nami is, if you use Lucianar, it does an incredible amount of damage, and there's nobody on Butler who can really be happy standing in front of it and tanking it for the rest of their team. Psy, maybe, but even then, sets really don't build full tank. They build that more juggernaut bruiser type style, so it's going to chunk into him as well.
That is a very good point to bring up, how it's not going to be... I mean, really, neither team has a true tank. Neither team has much of a front line. It's just got a couple bruisers and a couple assassins with some ADCs to go along with it as a standard 4-5 point out of both of these teams. NatDog will be starting in the top side, so junglers starting on opposite sides. We'll see how that impacts the early game. No early scuttle fights or anything of the like, but does seem that Butler's bot lane will not be fake leashing, so that information game will certainly help out Villanova, as they are, of course, leashing their jungler.
Yeah, and last game we actually saw Levi shoving up and getting an aggressive chicken ward to spot out Frostfire, but this game, without that lane pressure, he's not going to be able to. But it looks like the leashes are probably just going to give away the jungle positioning. And interestingly, the Lucian and Nami lane was actually forced to leash, which will really hurt their tempo. It's a lot harder to hit level 2 first when you show up to lane later than your opponents, and Lucian Nami, as I think we all know, really wants to hit level 2 first.
That they do, but speaking of level 2s in the mid lane, NatDog's got it, but so does Akkers, as that Shroud was key. Picking it up instead of the Shuriken flip means that he can escape. So really great heads-up play out of the Akali.
Yeah, and if we look at the bot lane, right, we just saw it's actually Carthago who's playing aggressive into Franco and Dreamwalk, walking up with that level 2, level 1 advantage, throwing out the Jinx W, getting some poke down. And now Franco and Dreamwalk, they're going to be stronger, but they're going to be on the back foot. The wave state is going to be out of their control, and it's going to be a lot more awkward than it should be.
It is going to be... It's not going to be what they want, and a Guardian proc is going to save a little damage, but still a significant chunk out of that piercing light. As Levi still with a slight XP advantage. No one really looking too strong to start things off as those chains land, but the Shuriken Flip did as well. Both are quite low, and the Conqueror proc was there for Levi, but still not enough damage. Exhaust is dropped. Polymorph is there. The exhaust continues. Levi is here. Fantastic flash out of Franco to prevent what would have been certain death had that punch landed.
Yeah, absolutely. Franco and Dreamwalk need to play aggressive in this lane, but that does make them very predictable, so NatDog just goes bot, and trading Flash for Exhaust is definitely something that Butler is going to be happy about. Ooh, a little bit of action in mid lane. Could be turned around, but no, Villanova just decides to walk away, and in this lane where Lucian has so much kill pressure, if he can't flash on you to get that surprising burst of mobility and burst of damage, you can afford to play a lot more aggressively and play under a lot less pressure.
Exactly. Doesn't have that additional threat. Doesn't have that way back in. Franco does still just want to keep harassing. Polymorph popped pretty early on, so this is a small timer, but still this cannon wave going to be that much more important to Villanova's bot side as you want to get that gold, keep that lead up. It's about a 1-2 CS lead, but still the threat pressure is present. And now looking across the map, where do you think the next point of contention is going to be? Is it just going to be constant waiting for this bot lane to break open, or will it be something more neutral like a spawn of a dragon or herald?
I definitely think Villanova needs to play more actively and try and push the tempo of the game. I think they should abuse their winning bot matchup and just try and take this dragon as early as possible. I don't even think Butler is in a position to fight for it. I don't even think we'll see bloodshed for the dragon, but when you're playing this early game centric comp, one of the main ways you can win without forcing fights is to stack up dragons and get that soul win condition as early as possible to compensate for your lack of scaling.
Because Franco couldn't get a Noon Quiver, is just going to pick up that serrated Dirk on back, so this is going to delay that first mythic, but what direction is this going?
I mean, the serrated Dirk buy is pretty standard in this Lucianami lane. It does delay the first mythic, as you said, but it just gives you so much early power. As Ocker might be in a 1v2 here. Just gonna pop the Shroud. Good juke by him. And you can just walk away safe.
Ockers has been giving an absolute clinic on this Akali on how to use that Shroud. Not just in this game, but also earlier on in their series against St. John's. Ockers was one of those really standout players and the shining lights for Villanova, as it was off of his back that they nearly came back in game 1 and were leading in game 2 as Frostfire about to get face checked. It's a tough position, nearsighted from Carthago, but here's the response from Vi. It stands for violence, and that's the sister-sister duo. Not quite coming to fruition. No one goes down quite yet as Woolala prevents it back, and we're still deathless.
I mean, that's an incredibly close play, right? Like, that Viq could not have been closer to hitting us. Both top laners are level 6. They're committing to the fight.
They are committing. I don't think that Sai wants this, though. The second Cyclone's quite a bit of damage. The Haymaker shield is enough for a moment and a great flash away to prevent any further damage. But still, Sum's burned by both, and now Franco in a dicey position. Does manage to stay alive, drop a little more poke. NatDog still hovering, won't result in anything else.
Yeah, and right now we're seeing kind of why people love this Lulu into the Lucianami. When you take Guardian and max your shield, you're still going to take damage through it, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be that oppressive, lethal damage that Lucianami usually puts out, and that's freed up Carthago to stay in lane and stay relatively even in CS this entire time. He's probably going to drop maybe one wave on this recall timer, but considering the scaling difference between these two bot lanes, if you're only behind 10 or 20 CS coming out of the early game, you're feeling really great for Butler.
And the fact of the matter is, considering how much pressure we've seen out of Franco in a few of these moments, I mean, Papa Jster and Carthago have been playing this lane out absolutely beautifully.
Mhm.
As there's that early Drake getting started up. Frostfire seeing that back timing, or realizing that there's no pressure out of Butler's bot lane, that they are just going to be able to pick up that opening ocean. And now to continue, it'll be their setup. But now, okay, I was gonna wait for a second because it looked like there might have been a kill mid.
You took that, it was crazy.
Yeah, exactly. It was a Hextech on Ocean, but still, looking across the map, where is this first kill going to be? Because I know we want it in the bot lane, but realistically, it's feeling like it might just be out of the mid lane if the junglers show up.
I feel like neither mid laner is going to die to a gank. I feel like they're kind of both too tanky for that. But I mean, just looking at the state of the game, the next play is going to be the play for this Herald. Usually when teams get early dragons, we see the other team try and trade for the Herald, but that's not what happened here. So Villanova is going to be able to try and play for both objectives. And that's probably where the first major fight is going to happen, because the top side of the map is a lot more even than the bot side is. Without that Lucian and Nami, Butler really can contest Villanova as they realize it and are just starting up the Herald, and it looks like Villanova is just going to give it away.
Yeah, there's no real response that can be had. Levi was able to shove in the wave. Sai was up top side and was able to shove that in. Of course, just having some priority over the Wukong anyway. That was the preferred counter pick. Frostfire will not be able to clear away that ward, so some free vision, and especially blue vision that's coming up.
Yeah, and just, you have to feel like the longer this game goes without any kills happening, the better Butler feels. The onus is really on Villanova to make a play happen.
This looks real dicey as Frostfire staying alive for a second, and we are going to get first blood, and it's Frostfire to pick it up as Hawker's helping out with that last bit of damage, and now looking to get onto Levi. Woolala as well up top onto Sai. It is a couple of split fights between the two solo laners as Cyclone is up, waiting for the opportunity to use it, and doesn't quite get popped. And bot lane as well, we've gotten engaged. They all know that they're all alone, and the culling is not enough. Is there an extra auto? Is there anything else? A shield instead, and somehow they stay alive, but the exhaust should be enough for Franco to find Carthago, and finally this game breaks open.
Yeah, it breaks open in very explosive fashion as fights are just taken in all three lanes. Augers. Oh.
Augers! Levi and the ranged minions are doing so much! Minions turning into winions!
Either one dies.
But still...
my god.
Oh my... Oh my!
And from downtown, Butler Carthago pulls out the Mega Death Rocket, and that feels great for Butler, just as his bot lane matchup went wrong, just as Villanova was finally able to get the value they needed. It's going to be a kill. Ooh, whoa.
Immediate
Bot
dive.
laner's dying here, but that's a huge wave, and there's no teleport on Sai, so it is going to favor Villanova pretty heavily.
Yeah, big dive for Woolala. Is just going to shove that in, keep that 15 CS lead, and now Carthago does have the Kraken up, and Franco just going to try and clear what he can, but still, this is going to be the Herald crashing, and Carthago able to get at least one auto, means he'll be sharing in that 320 gold bounty. Nothing else, but still a nice chunk of change to help offset that death, and the fact of the matter is, now this Jinx is a little further ahead than this Lucian.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting that kill is so crucial because once the Lucianami starts to snowball, it can get really oppressive, but that kill made the difference between Carthago having his Kraken Slayer or not, and since he got that Mythic Spike, he's really freed up from a lot of pressure.
Oh no, Dreamwalk's just dead here. There was that ultimate popped, and the fact of the matter is, Dreamwalk was just sushi after that, as Nat Dog getting real low, and now there's a look by Frostfire, but couldn't find anything, and there's going to be a ward clear. Levi's in the vicinity, but up top, we've still got Woolala looking to continue to press that advantage.
Yeah,
neither top laner has ulti, though.
Yeah, Wulala's winning the trade in the short term, but that set passive means that he will be able to regen that health a lot faster than the Wukong can. So the trade's kind of about even, and these top laners have just been fist fighting all game. Low kills, but they keep putting each other super low on HP.
As top lane should be. Slap, 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 slap. Map, what is that?
Absolutely.
I just care about my island. I mean, we even saw in the team fight around the jungle, top laners still just fought each other. There wasn't even any engage. There wasn't any follow-up on the mid lane fight. They were just like, no, I'm slapping you.
Speaking of engagements, by the way, this Ocean Dragon is spawning. Neither team is posturing around it. However, Villanova, in order to keep up the tempo... Oh, my God.
Oh my, big sidestep, and Wulala will be able to find some, and there's the showstopper again. It happens every time. It's a script. The Cyclone comes out. There's a sidestep from Wulala off the Haymaker, and then Psy falls after the showstopper.
Yeah, just really well played from him, and that probably means the Dragon's going to be free for Villanova because there is that teleport threat if Butler were to decide to contest it. And with 2 dragons in the early game, the gold is even, but Villanova has a pretty clear path to victory.
They certainly do, as that's going to be a response kill on the top side, so still a free shutdown and trade for that Drake. Gold's dead even, but still that 2 Drake advantage still leaves it towards Villanova, although this isn't as dominating as they would have wanted with their composition.
Yeah, I think they really wanted to be ahead like 1,000 or 2,000 gold by now. If everything continues being even, this Jinx is just going to become an absolute monster. There's so much peel for the Jinx as well. Normally, Akali is sort of this really oppressive, unpeelable diver, but between Luluar and Setar, I think Akers is actually going to have a lot of trouble finding Carthago in a team fight.
Yeah, it's very true. There's so many ways to just click on the Akali and say, no, you are not going to take down my ADC. Is once again, Dreamwalk, you can't just face check the river when you don't know where the jungler is.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we might as well have been watching a replay, right? That's the exact same death as Levi. Now in some danger.
Oh, significant amount of danger. Does have that Akali ulti, so is able to dive away. For most of this, actually, Levi just wants to dive in. Frostfire's low, chains go wide, and turret falls in favor of Butler. So Carthago continuing to escalate, and what a sniper across the map! Carthago 2 for 2.
Yeah, Carthago has just found so much value on this Jinx pick. Aker is in danger, going to pop the Shroud and probably just walk away, but now it's going to be mid-turret falling, and the game really explodes in Butler's favor. Oh, that's a healthy turret. That's not going to fall, but it's going to take some damage. But still, the game really explodes in Butler's favor here, right? They have the scaling comp, and they're up 1,000 gold from the early game. They're feeling incredibly confident as Wula is in a little bit of danger. Natlock has R, but Sai is very low.
Yeah, that's a bit more what I was thinking about is how it's going to go. It does seem like Wulala wasn't expecting that change CC, wasn't respecting the potential, and probably should have just walked it on out.
And yeah, just Butler all of a sudden in pretty complete control of the game. Sai's still in danger.
Sai looks like he's going to go down to Franco. Will be able to find his second kill of the game, and now Herald is up, and no top laner around for either team. Villanova wanting to pick this one up, especially with how much gold Carthago sitting on, does not want to sit around.
Yeah, absolutely. Carthago sitting on almost a full item, picking up the Zeal and both daggers, just 600-ish gold off of his Hurricane. The R comes through to try and steal the Herald. I respect the attempt, but it is going to be a Herald going the way of Villanova. They have been pretty dominant in terms of objective control this game, but with how things are going, this third Dragon team fight is going to have to be played really carefully for Villanova. They're going to have to find probably a pick beforehand if they want to continue their Drake stacking. Carthago even just really
we might just get it right here. Shutdown is there. Franco stays alive, and now Akers as well looking for Levi. Knows that there's the timer on that Silas ulti, but NatDog is now in the vicinity, wants to roll up to the function and ruin Akers' party, and will be able to do so, at least in the short term. Won't see if that kill quite goes over, and actually, Akali's too slippery and does escape as Wulala up against Sky. Didn't get the knock up, does get a little bit of damage from that Haymaker, Both players looking for those Conqueror procs, trying to get that bonus healing. The Gore Drinker still around. Sky getting lower and lower and lower as there's more damage for Wu La La, but still just not enough. And it will be Psy falling back and Tower falling.
Yeah, Psy built a lot more for a team fight, right? Gore Drinker very reliant on getting that AoE healing value. In the 1v1, the Divine Sunder is going to just be worth so much more, and Wu La La comes out very ahead on the trade. Hurricane completed for Carthago is a major spike, especially with Dragon spawning in 50 seconds. They're going to be able to keep mid-priority for themselves and then get to the pit first. And I really think if Villanova isn't able to get this Dragon, if they're not able to get Soul Point, Butler is going to probably be 80% to win the game. Franco in a lot of danger here.
A lot of danger, but big exhaust to slow things down, and this is just Natdog overextending with Dragon about to start. They wanted a pick to get an advantage, but instead, it's Ockers diving in, landed the flip, looking for more, sees the Lulu and can't get anything else. As all Dreamwalk survives. I'm gonna say Carthago nearly, again, that sniper has been popping off, but without that jungler, this should be Villanova able to find the Drake, but Dreamwalk forced out. This is a scary spot to be in, as this is just gonna be Drake give up, try and trade for the mid tower, but Butler won't be able to get anything. Wu La La wants to re-engage. There's the culling drop. It's bringing Carthago so low, dives forward, piercing light doesn't land. And that will be survival out of the Jinx, but still objective for Villanova.
Yeah, I mean, just a really big mistake by Natdog, getting so overzealous, knowing they had to play for the Dragon. I think Butler could have just played it patient, right? I think they probably win the team fight if it's just a straight up 5v5 in the river, but because Natdog went in, he got pulled under tower, he got exhausted, he died. It's gonna be a huge swing back in Villanova's favor. It's third Dragon, it's Soul Point, and it's Herald getting dropped mid. Levi on the side, though, might look for a play. He has a Kaliar.
Oh, they dive in. Levi looking for more Crossfire, but does get slowed down for just a second. And now Natdog getting dug down once again, and Sky's all alone in the back line. Will be able to find Franco, and that's a big shutdown to find. And now here comes the cleanup. Carthago with that Runins doesn't get excited off of the snipe, but Frostfire slowed down for only a second. Those shots aren't fast enough. The ulti goes down. It's a 1-for-1. And Butler are really grasping for some sort of fight.
Yeah, it's a 1-for-1, but it is Villanova who needs to go back and lick their runes, which means it will be the mid tower probably falling. Wu La La wants to have something to say about it, though, and he does actually succeed in scaring Butler off, so it's really not going to amount to anything besides the gold for the kills being traded back and forth. And Butler now looking at an Infernal Soul. We saw 2 Oceans, I believe. And, you know, those are okay to get. You don't mind those, but Infernal is one of the ones you want. You really love to see this soul, especially when you're playing Lucian Nami, Akali, Graves. Having that little bit of extra damage over the top, as well as the extra stats that the Infernal Dragons give you by themselves, is going to make it so hard for Butler to play the game when they don't have a dedicated frontline.
And this is such a tight timeline. It's the 24-minute mark this is going to spawn, as now Akker's feeling real confident in the side lane. Levi should have a cooldown as well. No, it actually does have that ultimate. Shuriken flip misses, and that'll mean Akkers can't find the kill. Is going to have to back away as more Butler members are starting to find their way around the bot side, but still everyone worried about that purple worm for the next 3 minutes until Dragon becomes high priority.
Yeah, I don't think either team is really in a position to force a Baron fight right now, and I think Villanova is pretty content to just play calm, wait for the Dragon, and then just try and get the soul, right? They don't need to force anything. They're winning the game, and so if they get that Dragon, it's just gonna be the victory for them.
Oh, there's a flank.
Smoke clearing is a little bit of danger.
And now there's the flank from Levi. They were looking for one, and that Shuriken flip certainly helps, and the Super Mega Death Rocket starts off the fight. Jinx is already excited on the other side of it, and the continuation from Psy. Frostfire and Franco still somehow alive, and Carthago still hasn't been able to keep it going, but Wu La La gonna fall in just a second. That healing from the Divine Sunder was so big, but the flank just pincer strikes all of Villanova, and Akkers is just clearing off on the side. Great recognition. Butler want the Baron.
Yeah, Butler completely ready to just find the picks in the top lane, and Ocker is caught a little bit unaware. His teleport is only coming up now when it's too late, and Butler getting this Baron is going to mean it's up for the dragon fight, which is so crucial for them. Franco, in a little danger, going to walk away, is 1,500 gold just for killing the Baron, right? And then you get the XP for it, you get the recalls, you get the lane priority, you get the extra stats it gives, right? So Butler's going to be able to control the pit almost certainly ahead of this dragon fight and make Villanova come to them. And I was talking before the game, the engage from Villanova is not particularly consistent. They need to get somebody on a flank angle to really make a fight happen, or else Carthago is just going to run rampant.
That's true, but another point is, considering how far behind Butler was on the map, they still have quite a bit of space to retake in order to be able to step forward, and Villanova are going to posture as far forward as possible, as there's still so much clearing that needs to be done before these 40 seconds. I don't know how much work this Baron can realistically do outside of this Baron setup, or this Dragon setup.
Yeah. 30 seconds on the spawn. Butler is walking up. They've cleared out the wards in their own side of the jungle, but they have no aggressive vision being put down. Will spotted out on the flank, and it's gonna have to go soon. 17 seconds is the timer here as Frostfire goes to fix the mid wave. This Baron is not giving the lane control value it wants because everyone has to be in the river to contest the objective.
Exactly, they need to have everyone around, and Woolala looks to be the target of Butler. Ockers waiting on the side, scans out, realizes that there's no vision of this ninja, just lying in wait, searching for a time to dive on to Carthago or Levi and turn this fight around. Gets spotted on the control ward. Levi might look for this to be that moment. Dragon gets started. And this is soul for Villanova. This could be their win condition. Gets reset off that moment. Butler want to slow this down, try and poke out what they can, and Villanova just need to see one opportunity, one moment as Levi goes in. Levi looks to the back line. Woolala holds four back alongside the tidal wave. Mid laners are low. Levi flashes out, but it's first kill for Woolala. Carthago's very, very low, but he's still somehow alive. Franco dives in for the confirm, and it's not enough. The ADC's dead for Villanova, and Carthago is crushing over the back line as it's going to be Dragon picked up, and a lost fight for Villanova as Butler look to continue their Baron pressure.
And that's exactly what I was talking about. Ockers went in, he counter-engaged to try and get onto Carthago, and it almost worked, right? Carthago had an incredibly low health bar at the end of the fight, but the peel is just too strong from this Butler composition, and now that they have another 5 minutes stalled out on the soul condition for Villanova, it feels like they're going to become pretty dominant in this game. It's going to be really hard for Villanova to wrestle back control of anything.
I will say, though, at the very least, Villanova were able to pretty much stall out that entire Baron and only lost 2 towers mid, nothing on the side lanes taken. And Villanova has so far in this game looked like the better team on the map. So if they can continue to be that, continue to use the side lane pressure that Ockers and Woolala can provide, I think that's their path forward. But considering what a tight position is, yeah, we could see the Summoners Cup. Remember, World Finals is today, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
After this game, I'm literally gonna like change. I'm gonna get in my car and run down to a movie theater and watch it with some friends, and that's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Is Infinity Edge completed for Carthago and still uncompleted for Franco. That's going to be a very big power discrepancy. And I think the biggest thing to highlight for this game is, Frost's a little bit of danger. The biggest thing to highlight is that we talk so much about how good of a team fighting team Butler is. And last game, it felt like it didn't matter as much because both teams had such simple game plans in a team fight. It was hard to mess up. But right now, Butler has a very straightforward, easy to execute team comp, whereas Villanova's is a lot more complicated. And so I think we can really see Butler's team fighting prowess shine through like we did in that previous fight.
Absolutely, and it was just a matter of Carthago was in the backline. There was no access, and even though he did get chunked, there just wasn't that extra bit of damage to finish the job. And that's what's going to need to happen. It's going to be either Franco finding some alternate angle or Ockers and Wulala having enough damage together to finish off that Jinx. But there's just so much protection that it's so difficult to access. There's actually so many members are stacked up topside for Butler that Villanova are trying to find a way in, but this is still a dangerous spot to be.
Yeah, it looks like they're trying to trade the play on side, but there's not even a tower to take, even if it works here. Franco's going to get completely caught out.
Getting caught, Tidal Wave gets dropped, but doesn't knock up the one that matters, which is Carthago, and that Lucian being gone, the Nami as well, means their power duo is out of here. Wulala gets the cancel on the TP, and this is very, very dangerous for Villanova. Jump forward, Carthago still alive, and I was going to note how Carthago's positioning last game was one of the weak points, but now it has been fantastic. It's been one of the strong points as both Cyclones are running, and Wulala is only buying time, trying to find a kill in response. Flash forward on the side. There's not enough damage. The Triumph will re-heal, and those minions won't do anything as Inhib falls, and Villanova are truly on the back foot.
You know, I was about to say, things really slowed down ever since that dragon fight. It really feels like Butler was kind of just biding their time until the next one. They were poking around, trying to find a chance to take an objective, but nothing presented itself. And then all of a sudden, top lane just exploded. 2 towers go down, the inhibitor goes down, and they win the fight in the side lane as well. 3,000 gold in their favor at around 28, 29 minutes. It's not a game-ending lead, but when you're already scaling so hard, to have a gold lead like this feels incredible.
Certainly, and I'm going to say I think I was a little overzealous from Levi on that teleport. The team was a little far behind, but it did its job of scaring away Villanova. They didn't know how close everyone was, and now this is just going to be started on spawn by Butler. They know that they're stronger. They know they have the burn, but the reset is here. Tidal waves get popped on both sides, so that means Levi won't be able to steal anything else away. But the beefiness is too strong on Sai and Levi. There's no one who can really cut through, and now they're just marching towards that Infernal.
Yeah, and with level 16 on Levi, he's going to get his ultimate back so fast, whereas Dreamwalk is going to be on cooldown for when the dragon spawns. Levi can already take another one.
And that could mean the culling for zone. That could mean Graves ulti for burst. Is actually Butler just want to take this Baron. They want to try and force their opponent's hand, and it does look like Butler, barely aware, are starting to move up. They did have a ward on the pit. Is the burst fast enough? It's going down. It's very, very low. They're committing to this. There's a lot of damage on it. 2k, 1k, getting lower and lower. The smite is there. Levi pops the culling, and Wulala tanks up most of it. Will be that sacrificial lamb, goes for the knockups, and the rest of the team forced to back as their supers on the base, and one auto escapes and will fire its way all the way back down to the Nexus, and everyone else finds their way back home.
I mean, that feels really great if you're Villanova, right? You were expecting we're going to trade this Baron for Dragon, but instead Butler comes up, is only able to find Wulala, and it may end up being the Dragon anyway, but they might have a contest opportunity. Frostfire looks like he wants in to try for it.
Oh, he's a little bit... Yeah, I was going to say, I thought it was late, but instead it was just a moment off. Couldn't quite find it. Still a good attempt. It does burn the flash, but if the dragon gets stolen, that's completely worth it. So, good risk. Didn't find the reward. And if Butler loses one... I think for either of these teams, if they lose one fight, it could be the game.
Oh, I absolutely think the next team fight that's dominated by one team is going to end the game on the spot. I think if any fight ends with 2 people alive for one team and nobody on the enemy team, they can end the game.
And now, Villanova, they were able to find their way back from being behind last game, but it was off the back of Carthago's mispositioning and their own hard engage. This game, Carthago's positioning has been quite a bit better, and there's little to no hard engage present. So Villanova are really going to need an assassination or some side lane play that completely turns this on its head. But now there's nothing to really fight for, so both teams are just waiting for a mistake.
Yeah, it's such a tense game state right now where neither team feels strong enough to really be able to force anything. So there's just a lot of posturing and wave clearing as teams look for those tiny little openings that they can exploit. But nothing has been found so far. 3 minutes on both objectives here, 3.5 minutes, means that this stalemate might continue for a little while longer, though Carthago is definitely wave clearing a lot stronger than Villanova is. They're not really able to use their Baron buff to do anything but stall for time.
And I think that it was as much of a take the Baron away from our opponents as anything else, as Tidal Wave gets popped to clear some space, will chunk about a quarter of that turret's HP. And considering how quick that Silas R cooldown is, be able to find something else to disrupt space with in a few seconds.
I will say the one thing going Villanova's way right now is this top inhibitor has really not accomplished anything, right? It obviously didn't net them the Baron buff. They got the dragon that they were probably going to get anyway, and I don't know if you know this, an inhibitor is worth about a Baron's worth of golden experience for the enemy team.
That's a lot of money and experience.
Yeah, so overall, if this game stakes in the stalemate point, it could be potentially good for Villanova that they lost their inhibitor. Their bot tower will fall though, but look at how much damage Franco's culling is doing on 4 items here.
Yeah, it's doing an absolutely insane amount, and we'll say though, it still is a decently long cooldown. All 5 members in this bot side. Levi will be popping a culling of his own, and no minions, Carthago. You gotta step back for a second. And actually, oh, Franco dives in. Carthago's low. Where's the ulti? It's not there. Flash forced away. This is big. This could just be the rundown from Villanova. They know Carthago's too far away. Akker's diving in. Carthago's still running. Papa Jacer dies, and there's Carthago dead. The rest of the team looking for more. Dreamwalk goes down to a big haymaker, but the rest of the team is able to find the kills, able to find the fight. They're pinging mid. It's 55 seconds apiece. This could just be it.
Oh, I love the teleport to the wave by Rula. Not only does he get it shoving earlier, I think NatDog's plan was to try and go cut off the wave, and with Rulala there, he's not going to be able to do it. It's a 4v1 scenario, 20 seconds on your Jinx's death timer. It's very close on whether or not they're actually going to be able to end the game here. It's going to be the one inhibitor. They might look for the Nexus. They are 10 seconds on Carthago, though.
They've still got some dive potential. Akkers does have the ultimate coming up in just the next couple seconds. There is that dive available, but it seems that with those respawns, Villanova isn't comfortable trying to find the finish with how close Levi and Sai are from respawning and how it just takes a little bit of stall. Dragon is up in 45. That's the next point that both of these teams are looking towards. Oh, Levi and Sai are TPing behind. They're both there, but NatDog just gets bursted. They take the fight to the front. They're taking the squishies. They're looking for Carthago. The exhaust isn't enough. This Jinx is low. This Jinx is dead. There's no more damage for the side of Butler. While yes, Levi is big, the rest of Villanova are bigger, and the Cyclone will send Butler down. Villanova find their win of the day, and it's off the back of 2 quick team fights in the late game.
Yeah, Villanova really just outplaying Butler. I feel like there's not a better way to describe it. These 2 fights were played so well. The first one starts with Carthago just getting a little bit too cocky, positioning just a little bit too far forward, and then the next one comes when they split themselves up. It looked like such a good flank, but NatDog pulled the trigger just a little too early, and so instead of having this collapse from both sides, it was just a 3v5 followed by a 2v5, and Butler fell apart.
And the fact that Villanova were able to turn so quickly and realize that this flank isn't going to work and find that fight again off the back of Carthago's mispositioning in the bot lane is just insane. Both games ending the same way. Butler making one late game mistake and Villanova pouncing. What a victory, as we're going to hear from the victors after a really quick break.